Take a breath. Yeah, right there. Welcome to Take That Truth and Walk With It with Reverend Rich P., the podcast where real life meets real spirit. This isn't just talk. This is practical spirituality. This is faith in action. We're diving into the moments you live every day, the wins, the struggles, the how did I even get here seasons, and pulling the truth out of them. Not the polished truth, the real truth, the kind you can actually use. So whether you're on your way to work, sitting in your car trying to get your mind right, or just looking for a word that hits different, you're in the right place. Because here's the deal, you already have what you need. We're just here to remind you. Let's get into it.
All right, let's take a breath together, just forming ourselves here in the present moment, allowing ourselves to arrive fully in this moment, releasing the worry of yesterday and the anxiety of tomorrow. And just join me here, where all we are and all we can be is in this moment of potentiality. And I want to take the time to welcome you. My name is Rev Rich P., and you are listening to Take That Truth and Walk With It. And today's conversation is close to home for many people. We're talking about church hurt, spiritual exhaustion, and the process of reconnecting with your inner life after disappointment or emotional strain. A lot of people out there still value the power of prayer. A lot of people still desire a true connection with God. And a lot of people still carry deep spiritual hunger. But even with that desire to find, to connect, to know the power of prayer, they have experienced environments that's left them feeling emotionally heavy, disconnected, unseen, and or even worn down. This episode today will create some room for honesty, reflection, healing, and compassion. There's going to be space for questions here. There is a space for your healing here. There's a space for your humanity here. So let's go ahead and begin by walking together for a little while as we discuss this topic. So I've had conversations with people from so many different backgrounds who quietly carry spiritual fatigue. They spent years serving others while neglecting their own emotional well-being. Some stayed committed to communities where they felt pressure to hide their struggles. Others find themselves disconnected after painful experiences with leadership, expectations, judgment, and unresolved conflict. Over time, their relationship with spirit or spirituality became associated with tension instead of restoration. That kind of exhaustion affects people deeply. You feel it, or as we call it, embodying it. The body feels it, the mind feels it, relationship feels it. There are moments when someone can continue attending service, participating in activities, and fulfilling responsibilities while internally feeling distant from joy. I've been there, when you're in a crowd, in a ministry, in a church, and you feel like you're the only person there because something inside of you is saying there's something missing. There's no connection. It's more of a lecture, and I do what I'm told. And because spiritual spaces sometimes emphasize strength, many people learn how to keep functioning without acknowledging what's happening inside. Awareness creates room for healing. When we realize that there's, a lot of people like to say, and I talk about this, is I remember attending a seminar with James Ray, who wrote Harmonic Wealth. And one of the things he said, and that caught my ear, which started the process, was, even your minister has it wrong. It's about your connection to God. Now I'm going to turn that because it's not about him having it wrong. What we need to understand, and we say this in Unity all the time, our fifth principle talks about it's not enough to know the truth, but you must live the truth you know. But whose truth? See, if you ever read or know someone in a unity ministry, there's a book called How to Speak Unity. And in that book, one of the things she emphasizes is that unity never claims to say we have all the answers, but that we're here to help find those answers within yourself. And we help guide you on that path. And it all starts with that awareness before you can heal, is acknowledging where you're at. So when you listen to, and I used to listen to different Christian ministers and hear things we don't want to hear, things that my perspective may say is hate or some type of separation, and never understood why. And I had to realize that that was part of my trauma, my stories. So I had to have an awareness of where I was at that time. Now I can listen to those same pastors and preachers and teachers and know where they're coming from. But I also understand that it is based on their experience with spirituality, with Christianity, with being Muslim or being Jewish or being whatever it is that you worship or practice. And even atheists, when they talk about their own experience, it is their experience. And it is about understanding that. The four agreements always say, number two of the four agreements is never take anything personal. And number three is never make assumptions. And the reason for that is because people come sometimes from hurt. And we've seen this in social media posts and everything where it says hurt people. And they do, because it's their defense mechanism. It's their survival mode. And that's okay. That's where compassion comes in. When we learn not to take it personal, when we learn not to assume what the person feels, we begin the step for healing for them, or at least open the door for them to heal. We open the door to receive compassion. Again, their choices is what makes their new journey. Sometimes we need to look at that when people tell us, oh no, you need to believe, you need to follow, you need to that. You have to understand that's their understanding. Love them for it. Appreciate them. In fact, applaud them. Because how many people are out there, and I'll use the magical term, wishy-washy. Or as Mr. Miyagi said in The Karate Kid, yeah, either karate yes or karate no, karate maybe, squish like a grape. So though it sounds funny, but it is true. How many of us have been in the fence? It's like, this is the denomination, the practice, whatever it is I want to do. This is the teacher I'm following now. These are the instructions I'm doing now. And then somewhere along the line, you run into something you don't like and you start to step away from it. So now the teachings are now being diluted to fix your comfort. But here's the power in that. When the awareness comes in, of where you have deviated, where you'd rather stay in that comfort zone. And for those who've heard the dog story, for those of you who want to stay laying on the nail, awareness creates room for healing. When you're aware of where you're at and what you need to do, you open up the door to healing. And honest reflection creates room for healing. When you begin to look at those situations and go, okay, I understand that this is the devil I know rather than the devil I don't know, and become honest with that, you understand that you have now opened a place for healing. Then, once you understand that, you've made your awareness, you've come to the honest reflection of what's going on in your life, compassion toward yourself. Being soft with yourself, understanding that, we're human. We miss the mark many times. That also creates room for your healing. Your emotional well-being deserves care alongside your spiritual life. So it's not about a rigid requirement. It's about moving in faith, moving in a place where we can begin that awareness, begin that reflection, become compassionate with ourselves, and know that we can heal from that place. So let's talk about Unity Teachings. Unity Teachings reminds us that the presence of God exists with every person as divine life, wisdom, love, and possibility. I like to use the word potentiality. That means your connection with Spirit remains available during every season of your life. There is never any separation. Even during the difficult seasons, even during the uncertain seasons, even during moments when you feel emotionally tired, the presence of God is not fragile, does not break, does not fall away. It is still connected, flowing in and through you, and most importantly, as you. Sometimes people place so much energy into maintaining appearances that they lose touch with their inner experience. For remember, Jesus taught, when we pray, don't pray like the Pharisees, and I'm paraphrasing, who are putting on a show or a performance out there. Make sure that you pray in this way. And he gave us the Lord's Prayer, as they call it, or for those that have studied Aramaic and stuff, you understand that there are also really more instructions than anything. But when we let go of maintaining experiences that are causing us to lose touch with our inner experience, your soul continues asking for attention. It longs for something. It desires something. They say that desire sometimes is God knocking on your heart. So could that longing that you're missing is, hey, let me in. Not that he's gone anywhere, not that she's gone anywhere, not that, Spirit has disappeared in your life, but your acknowledgement becomes the door of awareness. Scripture contains many examples of restoration happening through reflection, prayer, stillness, retreat, and renewed awareness. Jesus often stepped away from the crowd and steps away from the crowd, and their demands in order to reconnect inwardly. This is the wisdom in creating moments of quiet. Just kind of stepping away. I'm definitely an introvert. I don't like titles, but seems like people understand that. I am not now don't get me wrong, I'm definitely an introvert in the way that if I meet the right people, I feel at peace with the right people, I can have conversations for hours with these people. But when I am in a situation which is loud and I feel out of place and I don't feel at peace, I need time to kind of restore myself. Sometimes I find myself that after an event the next day where I know, I got to get up and do this and I have to work on certain things and all that I'm exhausted. And I'll spend the day in bed, maybe watch some movies with my kids or my wife, and just relax for the day because I need that time to restore. Meditation in the morning, sometimes overnight, my mind is just going crazy. Decides it wants to have meetings in the middle of the night. Or maybe it was something that triggered me during the day that I'm still thinking about. And at morning meditation allows me to regain myself, bring myself to rest, and then refocus my clarity. So remember, rest supports clarity, reflection supports healing, and healthy boundaries supports longevity. Spiritual life becomes healthier when it includes room for honesty, care, and renewal. Many people carry the idea that spiritual maturity means constant availability, endless giving, or emotional suppression. Eventually, the nervous system responds to that imbalance. As a minister myself, now, because I'm more on the tech side of things, I have to yell at computers all day and websites and stuff like that. But when I do have people who understand me or want coaching from me, we at times when that conversation feels like, I've got to be there, I've got to be there, I've got to be there. It's like, no, my job is to lead you down a path. That path is now for you to take and create your experience. If I speak to you, let's say once a week during coaching sessions, but for the last 8 weeks, you've done nothing that have asked you to do or reflected or took time to whatever, you've made your decision that you do not want to transform or change or rewrite your story, whatever it was that your goal was. But it all has to come from becoming vulnerable, becoming available when your cup is full, and know that that's when spiritual maturity comes in, knowing when we need rest, knowing when we can be available, knowing to speak from a place and allow people to understand that I'm sharing my experience with you. You have to go out and experience for yourself. And know that none of us may have the right answer, but I can share the answers that have worked for me. So a healthier spiritual rhythm includes rest, emotional awareness, a supportive community, which is why we say whether it is your churches or Unity Ministries or a mosque or whatever it is for you, tap into a supportive community. Make sure that they're there for support and not to tear you down or tell you that this is the way it has to be. You'll know in your heart when that community is being supportive. Intentional reflection, personal boundaries, and practice that restore peace in your life. These are valuable spiritual disciplines. I'm going to repeat it just for that reason. A healthier spiritual rhythm includes rest, most important, emotional awareness, those triggers, knowing where they're coming from, what's your emotional state, choosing how to react, supportive community, your churches, your friends, the people that build you up, not pull you down into their drama, but build you up. Intentional reflection, when we truly look at our lives and say, this is working, this isn't working. And we stop blaming other people and other things and stop listening to the outer world and start to find it within ourselves and know that we're listening not to our ego, but that true space within ourselves. And again, we have personal boundaries and practices that restore peace. These are valuable spiritual disciplines that are important for our daily practice. So how does this work in practical spirituality? And again, just to refer back to practical spirituality, it is literally what the word says, practice. We're not just talking about it. We're not just reading about it. We're not just listening to our ministers and pastors and preachers and rabbis and imams and anyone else who is speaking to you. We're actually taking what we got from that. And it could be a word, it could be a sentence, it could be an action, it could be a whole lesson, and actually putting it into practice. So how is this practical? All this that we know, how is it practical? Well, reconnecting spiritually often begins through small, intentional moments. We're not asking you to read the whole Bible and following it left to right, right to left. We're not telling you to read any of the old Hindu scriptures or any of the modern scriptures. We're asking you to take small steps. Maybe reconnect with prayer. If prayer was something you practice and you found yourself falling away from it, utilize it. You may reconnect through journaling. I love to journal. I've been missing a couple of days myself, but I love journaling. You can reconnect through music, meditations, nature, counseling, and meaningful conversations. Healing unfolds differently for each person. So don't allow someone else to say, no, you've got to do this and breathe 20 times this way and do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around. No. Learn. Rev Rich, I want to meditate, but I'm not sure how. Not a problem. Close your eyes and breathe. Don't feel comfortable closing your eyes? Open your eyes and breathe. And when thoughts come about, say thank you and let them keep moving. Nothing wrong with it. The point is to find that balance within yourselves as to what you want it to be. There's a wisdom in paying attention to what genuinely restores your inner life. You deserve spiritual practices that support your peace, growth, and emotional health and authenticity. One of the healthiest things you can ever ask yourself is, what helps me feel connected to love, clarity, and wholeness. So I'm going to say it again. One of the best things you can ask yourself is, what helps me feel connected to love, clarity, and wholeness? When we ask ourselves that, we begin to shift the focus toward how to nourish our spirit, how to nourish ourselves. Some people, like I said, needs quiet after years of noise. Some people need support after carrying everything alone. Some people need permission to slow down after constantly pushing themselves. Healing grows gradually through constant care. And listen, there's a strength in allowing yourself to receive support. And I think, one of the greatest things here is I was just talking about this with my wife, because both of us are those stubborn people who don't want to ever ask for help. And I had to learn a long time ago that there are going to be times where I used to hurt myself physically because I couldn't do something, or I had hurt myself previously, but I was going to push through the pain, and I ended up hurting myself worse. Now, luckily, it was nothing life-threatening or, anything like that. But, if you hurt an arm and you can't move your arm, but you're going to push that arm anyway past it and wonder why you can't use it for the next 2 weeks. Sometimes asking for help feels like a double-edged sword. But what I found out is that when you make that decision to acknowledge when you need help and ask for it. Now, doesn't mean that you're going to get it, or you may get it in the way you need it, but you ask for it. Because in vulnerability, there is strength. And Brené Brown has drilled that into us. In vulnerability is strength. Some people need permission to slow down after constantly pushing themselves. I am guilty of that. I'll lay down next to my wife. We'll be watching a movie, and if the movie or the show is okay but not catching my attention, guess where my mind is running? Oh, you need to do this, Rich. You need to finish that. You need this. You need that. And I never slow down. I do have one vice, and it's very occasional, which is I love cigars. And sometimes just sitting outside on a chair, a cup of coffee, maybe a drink in hand, and a light cigar. Just staring off. I watched the birds. The other night I was outside. It was pitch dark. I started to see the stars come out. And it was just that peaceful moment. And maybe it was only an hour or two, because I had to take care of some garbage that had to go out. And then once that was taken care of, the rest of the time was just me watching, feeling at peace. Healing grows gradually through constant care. And listen, there's a strength in allowing yourself to receive that support. There's wisdom in slowing your pace long enough to notice that your spirit needs. Your spirit is crying out for something. And there is a freedom in building a spiritual life rooted in sincerity. So what do we want to do this week as I wrap this up? Here's your walk this week. Create one intentional moment for spiritual restoration. Keep it simple, keep it meaningful. Sit quietly for a few moments, take a peaceful walk, write honestly in a journal. And I'll emphasize that, write honestly. I've met people who write in a journal based on, well, somebody reads this. You can read through my journals and it'll piss some people off. It'll make people laugh because I scold myself, And then there's loving moments that I always say, if my kids or my wife, when I finally transition, decides to read through the journals, there are going to be times where they're like, wow, I never thought he was so proud of me, or he this, because I wrote it in my journal rather than saying it. And years have passed to remind me to say that every so often. And during that moment that you find for yourself, ask yourself, what would support healing and peace in my life right now? You could even do this listening to music that grounds you, makes you feel spiritual, feels great. Maybe spend time in prayer without pressure to perform. Heck, Prayer takes a lot of forms, and sometimes it's just talking. Hey, God, blah, 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 blah. Hey, Jesus. Hey, Buddha. Hey, Allah. Just have a conversation, just so that you feel grounded, and allow the answers for you to unfold naturally. And pay attention to the environment, conversation, and habits that leave you emotionally drained. There's titles like energy vampires, people who are always coming to you for help or talking to you negative. I had to walk away from a lot of people because it was almost an addiction to negativity. And that awareness, when you get it, helps you make healthier choices moving forward. You deserve that space that supports growth, honesty, compassion, and peace in your life. Don't ever let anyone say anything different to you. So as we close out, let's take a breath. Just breathe out. A lot of heavy conversation here today. And remember that healing remains possible. Peace is possible. Connection is possible. And there's a wisdom growing within you throughout every season of your life. And I want to thank you for sharing this time with me today. And if this episode helped you in any way, and send it to someone who may need the same lecture, the same talk, the same support, reflection, or reminder that restoration matters. You could always stay in contact with me at reconnecting.com. And if you're ready to deepen your healing journey, explore coming soon is the Take That Truth and Walk With It journal experience. And there'll be 2 other levels I'm working on right now. But as always, I remind you that every journey begins with the first step. And with that being said, somebody, and I'm grateful for her, during a meeting, I had introduced them to this podcast, and she said this topic and this title reminds me of a biblical scripture in the Old Testament, Isaiah 30:21. So I want to leave you with that. Isaiah 21 in the NIV version of the Bible says, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. And I'm going to say, as you listen to my voice, take that truth and walk with it. This has been Rev Rich P. Peace and blessings.
Take a breath. Let that settle in. Now, don't just hear it. Walk it. Because truth isn't something you collect. It's something you live. And the moment you start applying it, everything begins to shift. If something spoke to you today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, pass it on. Be the light in somebody else's moment. And if you're ready to go deeper, more tools, more truth, more ways to live this thing out in real time, head over to revrichp.com. That's where we keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay grounded, stay intentional, and keep showing up as who you already are. Take that truth and walk with it. Peace and blessings.